When I bought my modest home at the edge of a quiet cul-de-sac, I was searching for peace, a retreat from the chaos of the city, a neighborhood where I could mow my lawn in peace and drink coffee without listening to sirens all day. What I didn't realize was that my biggest headache wouldn't come from city life, but from a woman named Karen, Maple Grove's self-appointed HOA enforcer, even though I wasn't part of the HOA at all. My property had been grandfathered in from an older county zoning law, sitting just barely outside of the HOA's legal jurisdiction. That should have meant freedom. But to Karen, it meant challenge. Her behavior wasn't officially sanctioned, but she treated her HOA duties like a badge of honor. Every time she saw a lawn too high, a fence unpainted, or God forbid, a kid riding a bike without a helmet, she pounced. Her clipboard was practically fused to her arm, and she walked around with a superiority complex that could stop traffic. It wasn't long before she turned her attention to my front yard, and, specifically, to my mailbox. It all began when I replaced my old, rusted-out mailbox with a brand-new one I built myself. I chose a solid white wooden post, clean lines, and a standard black box with a red flag. I took pride in it, dug deep into the ground, used cement for the base, made sure everything was level. It stood straight, looked sharp, and was well within the property boundary. I even measured the legal setback from the road just to be sure. No complaints, not one. Until 3 weeks later, when I came home and found it flattened on the lawn. The post snapped clean at the base. Tire tracks curved up from the street, cut across my grass, and stopped exactly where the mailbox had stood. My first thought was, some local teens were being stupid. Then I thought maybe a delivery driver clipped it on accident. So I replaced it. This time I painted it bright red, thinking maybe it wasn't visible enough at night, and added reflective tape. 2 days later, it was gone again. That was when suspicion turned to certainty. I checked my home security system and rewound the footage. My front cam didn't catch the actual collision, but my side cam gave me a blurry glimpse of a silver Lexus, pulling onto the grass right around 2 a.m. and reversing away. The license plate wasn't visible, but the car was unmistakable. There were only 2 silver Lexuses on my street. One belonged to Karen. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I rebuilt the mailbox again, this time with a steel interior, hidden inside the wooden frame. I cemented the post in again, added a layer of weatherproofing, and even bolted the box itself into a reinforced sleeve. I wanted to see what she'd do next. It didn't take long. 3 nights later, I was woken up by a dull crunch outside. I threw on a jacket and stepped out just in time to see Karen standing next to her Lexus, front bumper hanging loose and radiator hissing steam. My mailbox stood perfectly upright, barely a dent. She looked at it with something between shock and fury. "I didn't see it," she mumbled. "It's bright red," I pointed out. "Well, it's dangerously close to the road. Someone could get hurt." "Yeah," I said, looking at her crumpled bumper. "Someone already did." She didn't respond. She just turned, robe flapping, and stormed off. The next morning, I found a typed letter in my mailbox. It wasn't signed, but it was clearly from her. "Your mailbox is a hazard. Consider moving it back 5 feet to avoid future accidents. As a responsible homeowner, you should prioritize community safety. Regards, a concerned resident." That you, was it? That was the moment I realized this wasn't some petty annoyance. Karen was actively trying to destroy my mailbox and using the excuse of community safety to justify it. That mailbox had become a symbol of defiance, of resistance. And I wasn't about to let her win, so I escalated. I designed and built what I called the final mailbox. Inside the shell of a standard wooden post, I installed a steel pipe filled with concrete and embedded rebar 6 feet into the ground. The mailbox itself was titanium-coated with a soft outer shell to look unassuming. From the street, it looked like an ordinary post, but in reality it could stop a truck. And just to top it off, I installed a motion-triggered camera disguised as a decorative birdhouse facing the lawn. Night vision, wide-angle lens, and cloud storage. Let her try again. She didn't disappoint. 5 days later, at 1:47 a.m., I got an alert. I opened the video feed and saw her Lexus approaching with headlights off. It coasted silently, then suddenly veered onto my lawn and accelerated. Boom, metal-on-metal impact. The car's hood buckled, her bumper folded. Steam hissed from under the hood like a pressure cooker. The mailbox didn't even wobble. She stumbled, out of the car in a robe, staring at the unshaken mailbox like it had betrayed her. The next morning, I printed 3 screenshots from the footage, one of the impact, one of her license plate, and one of her face in mid-scream. I taped them to the post with a label that read, "Smile for the camera, Karen." By noon, she was on my porch. No apology, no shame. "This is harassment," she snapped. "Driving on my property and damaging my mailbox is a crime," I replied calmly. "You're provoking me." "By owning a mailbox?" She went red in the face and left without another word. That week, my trash cans were mysteriously knocked over 3 times. My sprinklers were accidentally left running all night. Someone stuffed a dead fish into my mailbox. Real middle school antics. But I didn't bite. Instead, I doubled down. I filed a formal complaint with the city about ongoing harassment. I included the video footage and written documentation. The city clerk was sympathetic but said they couldn't get involved in a neighbor dispute unless something escalated. So, I took the next logical step. I uploaded the footage to YouTube, titled it, "Karen versus Indestructible Mailbox. Guess who won?" Within 3 days, it had over 500,000 views. People loved it. Comments flooded in. Mailbox 3, Karen, 0. Justice has never looked so metallic. Give that mailbox a medal. It was a hit. Karen, naturally, was humiliated. She retaliated by calling a city inspector to report my mailbox as a code violation. One afternoon, I came home to find a man with a clipboard inspecting the post, while Karen stood nearby, arms crossed like a prosecutor watching an execution. I calmly walked up and greeted him. He explained the situation. "We received a report that this mailbox is a public safety hazard," he said. "Well, it's 14 inches from the curb, has reflectors, and is entirely on my property," I replied. "And here's the permit and inspection documents from the installation." His eyebrows rose. "You got a permit for a mailbox?" "I don't mess around," I said with a grin. Karen turned red again. The inspector nodded, said everything, looked fine, and left. But Karen wasn't done. She began walking her dog past my house 4 times a day. The poor thing barely got to sniff the grass before being dragged away again. Then came the anonymous calls. "You think you're funny? You'll regret this." Obvious burner phones. I wasn't scared, I was irritated. I responded by upgrading again. I added a pressure sensor to the base of the mailbox that would trigger a silent alarm to the police if it was struck. I also added another sign to the post. "Tampering with this mailbox is a federal offense. Surveillance active, recorded, prosecuted." And one night, Karen walked back. This time she was in all black, hoodie, gloves, flashlight in hand. She tiptoed across the lawn like a cartoon burglar. The moment she stepped on the grass, ping. Alarm triggered. Floodlights came on. Sirens blared faintly in the distance. The camera caught her freezing like a deer in headlights before bolting back toward her house. I uploaded the video. 1 million views within a week. Even the local news picked it up. They blurred her face, but everyone knew. The next morning, a for sale sign appeared in her front yard. But I wasn't finished. Because just as she packed up her bags and tried to retreat, I received a letter from my mortgage company. An anonymous complaint filed against my property for violating neighborhood standards. Someone was trying to sabotage my financial records. It didn't take a genius to figure out who, but she made one final mistake. She didn't know I had just refinanced with a private lender and that I had access to her public property complaints history, and now it was my turn. Karen had finally crossed the line. Filing an anonymous complaint with my mortgage company wasn't just petty, it was calculated sabotage. But she didn't know I'd already switched lenders months ago when interest rates dipped, and the new firm was owned by a military buddy of mine named Carlos. I called him the moment I got the notice. After laughing for a good 30 seconds, he said, "You're fine, man, but send me anything you got on her. This could be fun." That call sparked something in me. This wasn't just a feud with a nosy neighbor anymore. Karen had become an obsessed manipulator, abusing her self-proclaimed HOA status to intimidate and control. I had evidence, footage, documentation, and now an audience. My YouTube video of her hitting my reinforced mailbox had already surpassed 1 million views. News outlets were sniffing around. Up until that point, I'd declined all interviews, but now I saw an opportunity. I agreed to speak with a local station. The deal? My address stayed private, and the piece would focus on mailbox vandalism as a broader issue. They ran the story with the headline, "Local Man Reinvents Mailbox After Repeated Attacks." Of course, anyone from Maple Grove knew exactly who the mystery driver was. The piece exploded online. A parody song dropped the next day. Memes of steel mailboxes captioned, "Come at me, Karen," went viral. Karen was publicly humiliated, and she hated it. But instead of laying low, she struck back. Karen held an emergency HOA meeting, despite the fact I wasn't part of the HOA. My friend Jim, who lived nearby and was an HOA member, secretly recorded the meeting. Karen ranted about community decay, public shaming, and how some residents were turning Maple Grove into a carnival. Jim texted me the whole video. Watching her meltdown over a mailbox confirmed what I'd suspected. Karen wasn't angry because of the mailbox. She was angry because she couldn't control me. My property existed outside her reach, and that drove her mad. I wasn't trying to escalate things, but I did believe in teaching lessons. If she wanted to turn this into a chess match, fine. I had the next 10 moves already mapped. Enter my cousin Eddie, a metal fabricator and part-time inventor. I called him with a concept. "I want to build something ridiculous," I said. "Big or clever?" he asked. "Clever. Something she won't see coming." For the next 2 weeks, Eddie and I designed and built the ultimate mailbox. We used carbon, steel, powder coating, shock absorbers from a Harley-Davidson, and a cemented rebar cage buried 6 feet into the earth. Hidden sensors would activate a waterproof Bluetooth speaker that played different sounds depending on proximity. Police sirens, barking dogs, or the calm voice of Morgan Freeman saying, "Step away from the mailbox, you are being recorded." We called it the KarenKiller 3000. When it was ready, I held a mini unveiling. I blasted the Rocky theme and invited a few neighbors for laughs. Some brought lawn chairs. One neighbor brought popcorn. Even Jim's teenage son high-fived me. For the first time in a while, the neighborhood felt like a community again. Karen, however, watched from her driveway like a storm cloud ready to burst. 3 nights later, she made her move. This time, it wasn't her Lexus. She borrowed a friend's truck, blacked out the plates, and wore a hoodie and ski mask. I was watching it all on my phone in real time. My camera, upgraded with night and thermal vision, caught her approaching the mailbox with a metal bat. She swung. The speaker blared, "Warning! You are being recorded!" She shrieked and stumbled. The motion sensor triggered floodlights. A bay. Pressure plate triggered another speaker. "This is federal property. Step away now." Within 5 minutes, a sheriff's cruiser rolled up. Karen tried to run. She didn't make it far. She was arrested on the spot for trespassing, vandalism, and disturbing the peace. I thought that would be the end of it. But Karen, being Karen, doubled down. She filed a lawsuit against me for emotional distress and provocation by design. She claimed I had turned the neighborhood into a circus and that my mailbox was intentionally triggering. What she didn't count on was that I countersued. Brought videos, statements, HOA meeting footage, photos. I even had a neighbor testify that Karen once threatened to fine him over the color of his mailbox flag. I showed the judge the footage of her getting caught. I didn't need to say much. The evidence told the story. The judge, unimpressed, dismissed her case immediately. Then she turned to me. "Mr. Larson, you are awarded damages, and Miss Karen is to remove herself from any HOA-related authority until further notice." Karen was humiliated. The video of her failed mailbox ambush became court record, which made it publicly available. I uploaded it. The video hit 5 million views. Soon, I was getting emails from people across the country. Folks sent photos of their own reinforced mailboxes. Some asked for blueprints. One guy built a mailbox shaped like a medieval knight and named it Sir Mail-a-Lot. My YouTube channel blew up. I rebranded as Neighborhood Justice. People submitted their HOA horror stories, and I helped them expose corruption, pettiness, and abuses of power. What started as a mailbox war became a movement. And Karen? She moved out. The house sold in 2 months. Rumor has it she tried to run for HOA president in another neighborhood but was denied after a simple Google search. My mailbox? Still standing? Karen? She never saw it coming. And the rest of us in Maple Grove? We learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't rage. It's resilience, bolted in concrete and ready for whatever hits next.